Politics can be quite a dirty business, leading to some of the biggest scandals in history. Because of the many perks that are included, such as fame, power, money, and honor, there are certain politicians that can't control themselves and give in to the temptations of corruption and greed. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are the 25 biggest political scandals in history that truly stand out. #25. The Profumo Affair was a 1963 British political scandal named after John Profumo, Secretary of State for War. His affair with Christine Keeler, the reputed mistress of an alleged Soviet spy, followed by his lying in the House of Commons when he was questioned about it, forced his resignation and damaged the reputation of Prime Minister Harold Macmillan's government. 24. Wilbur Mills was a popular U.S. congressman, but things fell apart for him after getting a DUI right after engaging in a scuffle with Argentinian stripper Fanny Fox. To make things even more comical, when he was pulled over, she was actually with him in the car. Before the police officer could even say a word, however, she jumped out the back and dove into a drainage ditch, after which she was taken to a mental hospital and left Wilbur with some serious explaining to do. 23. The Keating Five were 5 U.S. senators accused of corruption in 1989, igniting a major political scandal as part of the larger savings and loan crisis of the late 80s. Basically, they had prevented Charles Keating, chairman of the Lincoln Savings and Loan Association, from being audited in return for receiving campaign funding. Unfortunately for everybody else in America, the association collapsed under the corruption, causing billions of dollars worth of damages and ruining the senators' reputations. 22. From June 18th through the 24th in 2009, the whereabouts of politician Mark Sanford were unknown to the public, as well as to his wife and the state law enforcement division, which provided security for him. He had told his staff that he would be hiking the Appalachian Trail, but failed to answer any phone calls. Not long afterwards, however, reporter Gina Smith ran into him at the airport in Atlanta returning from Argentina. Apparently, he had had a mistress and decided to go pay her a visit. 21. Long before his picture-perfect royal wedding, Prince Harry attended a private party and was photographed wearing an armband with a Nazi insignia. While this was only one of many scandals the hard-partying prince was caught up in during his adolescence, it was the most memorable for many, and led to an official apology by the prince and palace. 20. In the Chappaquiddick incident on July 18, 1969, Mary Jo Kopechne, a female passenger of U.S. Senator Edward M. Ted Kennedy, was killed when he accidentally drove his car off a bridge and into a tidal channel on Chappaquiddick Island, Massachusetts. Kennedy swam free and left the scene, but Kopechne died in the vehicle. Early the next day, Kopechne's body and the car were recovered. The incident became a national scandal and may have influenced Kennedy's decision to not campaign for president in 72 and 76. 19. Although President Chen Shui-bian wanted to see a strong and independent Taiwan, his family's, and his own, lack of self-control managed to undermine many of his positions. His son-in-law was caught money laundering and insider trading. His wife wired over $21 million to various banks in the world, and he was arrested after his resignation for embezzlement of funds and receiving bribes. 18. Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi was involved in a lot of messes in his 17 years in office. He was known as a playboy, fraud, swindler, and gangster. The most famous of his escapades, however, were probably the huge promiscuous parties he threw that have come to be known by the nonsensical term Bunga Bunga. 17. Moshe Katsav, former president of Israel, was accused of raping and sexually harassing up to 10 women. While he was still in office, police raided his house and seized computers and documents. There were calls for him to resign or suspend himself from the presidency, which he refused to do. After stepping down, however, he lost his presidential immunity and was promptly convicted of the crimes, only to be released 5 years into his 7-year term. 16. When North Dakota Governor William Langer took office in 1932, he and 5 co-conspirators required all state employees to donate part of their annual salaries to their political party. This wasn't prohibited by state law and was a common traditional practice. However, when donations were made by Highway Department employees, who were paid through federal relief programs, the U.S. Attorney charged that the donations constituted a conspiracy to defraud the federal government. Langer and his colleagues were eventually brought to court. Although he was convicted of a felony and told to resign as governor, he ended up declaring North Dakota independent, instituting martial law, and barricading himself in the governor's mansion until the Supreme Court would meet with him. Eventually, a settlement was reached, and a new governor was chosen.
15.
The election between George Bush and Al Gore was plagued with issues. But it wasn't until Florida, bungled its voting system that the trouble really began. With the world watching, Florida was in the spotlight until the court stepped in and chose President Bush.
14.
Gary Condit, a former representative from California, was reported to have an affair with Chandra Levy, an intern at his Washington, D.C. office. After she disappeared, he admitted to the affair, but denied anything to do with her disappearance. He was cleared as a suspect, however, when Chandra's body was found, and police determined that Ingmar Juandique, a Salvadorian immigrant, was responsible. However, charges against Juandique were later dismissed for lack of evidence.
13.
On September 28, 2006, ABC News chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross reported that in 2005, Congressman Mark Foley had sent email messages from his personal AOL account to a former congressional page asking the page to send a photo of himself to Foley, among other things. Foley's office confirmed that Foley had sent the message, but said it has a practice of asking for photos of individuals who may ask for recommendations, and that the page had requested a recommendation. Eventually, however, other pages ended up coming forward and led to a severely tarnished reputation.
12.
Once thought to be an anti-apartheid hero, former South African President Jacob Zuma fell from grace after multiple scandals hit his 9-year presidency. Most pronounced was his relationship with the Gupta business family, which was reportedly responsible for him rapidly hiring and firing finance ministers, leading to a decline in South Africa's credit ratings. In 2017, South Africa's High Court voted to reinstate 783 charges of corruption and fraud against the president, leading to his resignation in February 2018.
11.
Although the National Enquirer isn't known as the most legitimate news source, they did manage to spill the beans on presidential hopeful and Senator John Edwards' affair with videographer Riel Hunter. The scandal was further complicated by Edwards' use of campaign funds to cover up the affair, his wife's terminal breast cancer, and his admission that he fathered a child with Hunter.
10.
According to published reports, investigators believe Eliot Spitzer paid up to $80,000 for prostitutes over a period of several years while he was Attorney General, and later as governor. Spitzer first drew the attention of federal investigators when his bank reported suspicious money transfers, which initially led investigators to believe that Spitzer may have been hiding bribe proceeds. The investigation led to the discovery of the prostitution ring, after which he obviously resigned.
9.
Throughout his campaign and much of his presidency, President Obama faced widespread rumors and controversy regarding the validity of his Hawaiian birth certificate. While the release of his short and long-form birth certificates proved his Hawaiian birth, many conspiracy theorists believe these certificates are forgeries.
8.
Infamous for his firm denial and then subsequent admission of having an affair with 22-year-old White House aide Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton faced impeachment on the grounds of perjury and obstruction of justice, although he was later acquitted.
7.
Suspecting Louisiana Congressman William Jefferson of bribery, the FBI raided his offices in May 2006, but he was re-elected later that year. On June 4, 2007, however, a federal grand jury indicted Jefferson on 16 felony charges related to corruption, which led to a 13-year prison sentence. The FBI's search of Jefferson's office was the first of its kind, and was disputed all the way to the Supreme Court, changing the way congressional investigations can be conducted.
6.
In the era of the #MeToo movement, widespread reports began to come to light regarding sexual harassment within the U.S. government. One of the most shocking results of this newfound attention was that taxpayers were funding settlements for sexual harassment against congressmen and that all victims of sexual harassment in Congress were made to sign an agreement barring them from talking about the harassment. Due to this attention, congressional policies and general public opinion has drastically changed.
5.
On July 14, 2003, Washington Post journalist Robert Novak effectively ended Valerie Plame's career with the CIA, from which she later resigned in December 2005, by revealing in his column her identity as a CIA operative. Louis Scooter Libby, advisor to then Vice President Dick Cheney, was eventually determined to be the source of the leak, and subsequently charged. This led to a widespread discussion regarding the safety and security of confidential operatives.
4.
In 2013, it was reported that while Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton used a private email server in addition to her secured government server for official government business. During the 2016 presidential campaign, Clinton was investigated for her use of this server for handling classified information. While the investigation led to no charges, the political fury into how the investigation was handled make this a scandal that is still talked about today.
3.
After the conclusion of the 2016 presidential election, a joint task force of the FBI, CIA, NSA, and the Department of Homeland Security found that Russia had intentionally interfered with the US presidential election with the intention of improving Donald Trump's chances of winning. While it's now well accepted that Russia did interfere with the election, the resulting special counsel investigation into whether or not President Trump's campaign was aware of Russia's involvement is still open, making this our largest unresolved political scandal on this list.
2.
Also referred to as Irangate, the Iran-Contra affair involved U.S. President Ronald Reagan's senior administration officials secretly facilitating the sale of arms to Iran, the subject of an arms embargo. They had hoped that the arms sales would secure the release of hostages and allow U.S. intelligence agencies to fund the Nicaraguan Contras. Unfortunately for them, the plan was uncovered and led to a huge international mess.
1.
The Watergate Scandal blew up after the June 1972 break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in the Watergate office complex of Washington, D.C. The Nixon administration initially attempted to cover up its involvement, but it eventually led to Nixon's resignation, the first and only presidential resignation to date.
Enjoying our lists? Be sure to click that subscribe button on the bottom right and the notification bell so you don't miss out on new ones every Monday through Friday. Share them with friends and help us consistently conciliate curiosity. And if you want even more lists, check out these videos here or just head to our website at list25.com.